Greetings, friends. It's that time of year. Game of the Year time. So, first things first, because I'm fucking lame, I haven't actually been able to play everything released this year that could be a contender for this list. So if there's a game or a bunch of games that don't appear here, it may just be that I haven't played them yet. Some of the games I haven't got to yet include Hades, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, Spiritfarer, Dreams. Is Dreams really a game? I guess it's more of an Demon Souls remake, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Trails of Cold Steel 4, Persona 5 Royal, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Amnesia Rebirth, The Pathless, The Call of the Sea, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and no doubt many more that I'm forgetting. This may mean that your personal game of the year doesn't make the list, and for that I'm truly sorry. Just know it's either because I couldn't get around to playing it in time, or because I have terrible taste and you shouldn't trust my judgment ever. I mean, why would you? Why are you even watching this video? Anyway, I'll be including an honorary mentions list too at the end of the video for stuff that almost but didn't quite make the cut. And it's also worth noting that the final list is not in order of quality. They're just my top 10 games of the year. Finally, a word on remakes and remasters. For simplicity's sake, I'm allowing full remakes to be included in this list, but not remasters. This is for no other reason than to try and keep this shit as concise as possible. Having said this, I'm kind of nerfing myself here, because Amalur, Xenoblade, and Pikmin 3 Deluxe should definitely be on this list, and now they won't be because of my own stupid rules. What a dickhead. Anyway, let's get on with this so we can finally fuck 2020 right off. Paper Mario is a franchise that has been quietly producing quality games in the background for many years now. While the last few entries, Sticker Star and Color Splash, have probably been the worst in the franchise so far, and it's more than likely that no entry will reach the dizzying heights of series favourite The Thousand Year Door, by far the best entry for my money, the Origami King still exists as somewhat of a return to form for Paper Mario, and a bloody good time to boot. While its combat can be a little too easy, and it never really challenges its player too much, in any capacity, it succeeds based mainly on its incredible writing and character development, which had me laughing out loud throughout. If you want a well-meaning, well-written, and relatively untaxing Switch game to sink around 30 hours into, Paper Mario: The Origami King comes highly recommended from me. The Last of Us Part 2 had a lot to live up to. The sequel to one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time, many worried that the story was finished with the impactful ending of the first game, and some, myself included, struggled to see how a sequel could possibly live up to the original, let alone surpass it. But instead of trying to recreate the first game as many feared they might, the team at Naughty Dog instead decided to go in a different direction, deconstructing the complex notions of revenge and empathy to polarizing results. For me, The Last of Us 2 succeeded in what it set out to do, and delivered a game that will stick with me for many years. It also didn't hurt that the game was a technical masterclass, providing some of the best production values we have ever seen on a home console in the history of the gaming medium. While not everyone agrees, and I completely understand why, the game is far from perfect after all, for me, despite its flaws, The Last of Us 2 is still a masterpiece. It's no secret that the Bloodstained series is the self-proclaimed spiritual successor to Castlevania, and between veteran Konami alum Koji Igarashi's studio, Artplay, and the side-scrolling experts at Inti Creates, it's clear that both the pre- and post-Symphony of the Night era of the now fledgling, or perhaps completely dead, franchise are covered. But it is the former of these two examples that Curse of the Moon 2 seeks to really recreate. And much like its predecessor felt like it could have been released on the NES in the late 80s, so too does this sequel feel like a follow-up, released only a year or two later. While it's not the perfect game, often making the player repeat its content with different characters or stipulations, and its reverence for such a specific era won't be to everyone's tastes, for me, it succeeded in transcending mere nostalgia, instead transporting me back to a simpler time in gaming. With great pixel art, an awesome soundtrack, tight controls, and a great atmosphere, Curse of the Moon 2 succeeds in that highest of challenges, being better than its predecessor. Speaking of transporting me back to a simpler time in gaming, fucking hell. Bundling both original titles in this from the ground up remake Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake is one of those rare occasions where Activision publishes something that actually exceeds expectations and potential. Tight controls, great aesthetics, a ton of content, and an amazing soundtrack. It really is all any disillusioned fan or newcomer could have asked for. Successfully managing to both make you feel like you're playing something brand new and also like you're playing the original games for the first time, developer Vicarious Visions somehow managed to deliver a package here that many a gamer will love. If you haven't already, buy it. I hadn't really been paying attention to Ghostrunner. I'd ignored its demo, and despite loving the style and tone, I just wasn't feeling any kind of draw to play it. However, one slow evening after finishing some scripts, I went searching on Steam for something to play. The store homepage advertised its usual contenders in the Games We Think You'll Like category, with one addition: Ghostrunner. I considered it for a while and thought maybe it's time I tried the demo after all. And man, that was one of the best moves I made all year. Within minutes of playing, I was exiting the demo and purchasing the full game, and for the next few days, all I did was play. Existing as a Mirror's Edge meets Hotline's Miami love child raised in the 1997 Los Angeles from Blade Runner, Ghostrunner is a game that engenders skill, persistence, and satisfaction in its player. It's not going to be for everyone, and its method of storytelling is deeply flawed, as almost all narrative is told through conversations that play as you are performing the most complex of inputs and actions, meaning in turn that it's hard to pay attention to. But the sheer satisfaction in its gameplay when you succeed is virtually unrivaled. If you ever wanted to be a cyborg ninja in a cyberpunk dystopia, tasked with murdering your way to the top of a megacity, you may want to give Ghostrunner a look. Just don't buy it on console. Wasteland is a series that I've always wanted to try. Its focus on a satire-ridden, post-apocalyptic United States setting, survival mechanics, multiple-choice, quest-driven gameplay, and spec-based character building are all right up my alley. And while the original title may have aged a little, the long-gestating sequel, Wasteland 2, is a game that has been in my Steam library forever. Enter Wasteland 3, an even more contemporary take on the formula, and yet another critically acclaimed entry in the franchise. Fearing it would again languish in the bowels of my ever-growing and eternally infinite back catalogue, I jumped in on the day of release this time, and man am I happy I did. Moving its setting from the deserts of Arizona and Nevada to a snow-covered Colorado, Wasteland 3's unique aesthetic, great writing, and fun gameplay make it one of the best games released this year. While it can be a little janky in places and suffers from some bugs, which, to be fair, the devs have been patching consistently since its launch, it's still a perfect entry point into a series that many may have missed thus far. Moreover, its presence as a day-and-day release on Xbox Game Pass also means the price of entry is much easier to swallow for many. Trust me, if you're a fan of turn-based, choice-driven, emergent gameplay, great writing and world building, and a ton of replayability, get on Wasteland 3 as soon as. Cyberpunk is seeing a resurgence in gaming right now, for better or for worse. But joking aside, this subgenre is one that often sees waves of popularity in popular culture, and in 2020, gaming was no exception. We've already spoken about one other great Cyberpunk game that released this year, the excellent Ghostrunner. But while Ghostrunner prioritized action-based, reaction-driven gameplay, Cloudpunk instead focuses on, for my money, what really makes the subgenre so interesting: the philosophical and societal implications and deconstructions within a world often dominated by megacorporations, poverty, disillusion, and advanced technology. Set in the ever-darkened and neon-soaked megacity of Nivalis, players take on the role of Rania, a young woman who has just moved to the city from the enigmatic Eastern Peninsula. Taking place over her first night in the city, as she completes her first shift for the more than a little shady delivery company, Cloudpunk, the game's Blade Runner and Neuromancer influences are clear. But that's not to say it's too derivative. It's definitely its own world with its own history and commentary, crafted through an interesting art style, some great, if occasionally obvious writing, and an amazing atmosphere. While it does have a few problems and definitely won't be for everyone, it's great to see a game have the nerve to tell a story through only dialogue and light gameplay elements, such as delivering parcels or taxiing people around, and succeed based upon these elements, along with its world building and clear reverence for its genre. If you like your cyberpunk slow, cerebral, and philosophical, then maybe give Cloudpunk a look. I've spoken a lot in my videos about how the level of quality is often more than a little uneven when it comes to Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 games. However, while this has often been a source of disappointment for long-time fans like myself, sometimes it can mean that the IP is still able to surprise you. When Warhammer 40,000 Mechanicus was released and started getting some buzz from the community, I was elated that I might have another great game to play in a world that I loved so much, and I'm happy to say that it didn't disappoint. Following the titular Adeptus Mechanicus as they discover a long-lost world brimming with technological discoveries and long-slumbering horrors in equal measure, the Darkest Dungeon meets XCOM gameplay made Mechanicus a joy from start to finish, and on into more playthroughs beyond. Its respect for the world, interesting choice of factions, and clear understanding of the IP make it one of the best games to hold the Warhammer license in many years. If you like 40k, or just good turn-based tactics games, don't sleep on Mechanicus. As a long-time fan of the Half-Life franchise, I, like many others, was initially a little disappointed by Alyx's announcement. While the idea of a Half-Life 3 has sailed over the horizon long ago, the headline, "Valve announces a new Half-Life game," filled me with an unprecedented level of excitement, only for them to be deflated by the second part of the headline, and it's VR only. Still, as the months wore on and we got closer to release, I thought, maybe I'll give it a try, and man am I glad I did. The sheer level of immersion, strength of design, and incredible atmosphere when playing Alyx is so transformative that even in context, it has become my favourite game in the franchise by far. I know it's lame to say that it's hard to convey or describe how amazing a VR experience is until you try it yourself, but this really is one of those times. If you have VR, my advice would be to buy Half-Life Alyx immediately. And if you don't, but you love Half-Life, then for me, it's even worth the hefty price of admission to get a headset just for this game. It's incredible, it's transformative, it's revolutionary, and it's unrivaled in the VR space. Oh, one final word of warning though, it's also fucking terrifying. There is no game I have played more this year than Animal Crossing New Horizons. Coming as it did in a year where genuine, hopeful, and joy-inducing escapism was needed most, I have no problem in admitting that Animal Crossing has helped me, and no doubt many others, cope with 2020. It's been an awful year, where terms like isolation and loneliness have taken on new, harsher meanings for so many, and the realities of a true, global catastrophe has never been far from our thoughts. Animal Crossing presents a world with no such worries, or at least a safe space where you and your friends and loved ones can take refuge from them. It's fun, rewarding, well-designed if a little slow, and truly smile-inducing. It's a game about all the best things in life that we often take for granted. It's a game about helping each other and incremental progression. It's a game about a lack of conflict and exuding togetherness to overcome any and all adversity. And in a year as wrought with tragedy, conflict, turmoil and division as 2020, I can think of no game more deserving of Game of the Year than the one game that truly, genuinely helped combat these things, if only for a little while each day.